Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
James sent me a note about a story he saw on CNN about ladies' nights and the legal problems therein. And I remember when I worked in radio, the station would often promote ladies' nights at certain bars, but I'm not exactly sure what was going on at those because quite often I was on the air promoting them, but I wasn't actually at the bars. So here's an interesting story out of California. Ladies' night lawsuit put a family-owned restaurant out of business. It's more common than you think, says Rameshah Maroof at CNN. Historically, ladies' nights have been great for business, right? The discounted drinks or meals tend to draw the large crowds of women, which in turn tends to draw more men, which then leads to packed bars and increased sales for the business. At least that's the thinking. So a family-run restaurant in the San Francisco Bay Area is shutting down this week because it says they can't afford to operate after they settled a ladies' night discrimination lawsuit. The owner and chef of the restaurant in Concord told the outlet that it hasn't been able to bounce back after settling a lawsuit over promotion that discounted drinks for women. It's not the first small business to be sued over a ladies' night promotion due to technicalities in discrimination laws in certain states. So this will depend on what state you're in, whether or not there's a law like this where you are. But in California, it's a Civil Rights Act that dates back to 1959. That says businesses can't discriminate against religion, race, and gender. So obviously, if you're giving the ladies discounts, you're discriminating against men by making them pay more. So a slew of lawsuits have since followed, and that's meant a sharp drop in that promotion. A professor of business law and ethics at the University of San Diego says a lot of these small mom and pop type bars honestly might not know about the law, which is why you see these lawsuits still happening with extremely small proprietors. Most gender discrimination lawsuits against small businesses get settled outside of court. According to the professor, restaurants and bars with razor-thin margins to begin with cannot financially handle a lawsuit from beginning to end and fight it in court, and that can get financially ugly very quickly. Even if most businesses don't host a ladies' night with malicious intent, if we're talking about California law and they're breaking it, unfortunately, they're probably going to lose in court, says the professor. Earlier this year in California, the minor league baseball team, the Fresno Grizzlies, was sued over a promotional event for women. But while the law was created to counter discrimination, the intentions of those who file these lawsuits has been scrutinized, with some calling them opportunistic and exploitive. A lawyer in San Diego has filed hundreds of them across California against women's organizations and women-only events, from the Grizzlies promotion to female-led startups to Mother's Day freebies claiming they're unfair to men. So the attorney did not respond to CNN's request for comment, but in comments he made to Bloomberg back in 2018, he said he's an advocate for diversity and equal treatment, that every one of the defendant businesses stopped their discrimination against millions of California consumers after I filed my lawsuits. So he's saying, look, I got results. That's what you do. At least 22 states and D.C. have explicit laws against gender discrimination in public accommodations, according to a policy think tank called Movement Advancement Project. So 22 states and D.C. means it's about a 50-50, give or take, as to whether or not this is happening where you are. Again, I'm not even sure if we have these in Michigan or not. It's been a while since I've heard somebody advertising a ladies' night, but I do remember them being a thing back in the day. A University of Miami business law professor told CNN that America is getting more litigious and the number of lawsuits and judgments involving small businesses is up. Now, one thing I will have to tell you is that you'll often hear that. People say, well, I hear a lot more about lawsuits these days. And I can tell you that many courts, if you count the filings and look at who the plaintiffs are and who the defendants are, there are some courts where the vast majority of the lawsuits are debt collection actions by credit card companies and that type of lawsuit. So someone didn't pay their bills, they're getting sued. That's one of the most common lawsuits out there. People think, oh no, it's medical malpractice cases. That's not true, not mathematically true. It's still tough for small businesses to fight lawsuits, even if they have liability insurance, because number one, lawsuits could exceed the policy limits and legal fees could rack up, but also some policy exclusions won't cover certain kinds of lawsuits. And so most people who get insurance on their bar, they're probably required to carry dram shop insurance, which is where if somebody leaves your bar drunk and gets in an accident and hurts somebody, if you get sued for that, then you got to have insurance to cover that. That's a common one. But also, like someone just walking through the bar and they trip and fall. So, premises liability type of insurance. But when it comes to a gender discrimination lawsuit, like they might go, well, we don't cover that. So when would a bar ever think to have an advertising coverage on their general liability policy? The professor asks. In the South Florida area, one expert recommends businesses increase their policies to cover issues from $1 million to up to $2 million. But oftentimes lawsuits against small businesses involve an alleged breach of contract or someone slipping and falling inside the store. Liability insurance covers things like negligence claims, not protection against discrimination. And so they recommend that all small businesses get some sort of insurance and make sure they know exactly what's covered. It's also important for an owner to open an entity when running a small business to avoid exposing personal assets in a lawsuit. So obviously you set up a corporation runs the business, if you can do that, et cetera, et cetera. But I can tell you right now, a lot of people will watch TV or they'll simply be at a bar and they'll do the math and they'll go, okay, I just got charged this much for a beer. I can buy the beer for this. And if I buy it wholesale, I can probably buy it for this. So this to this, that's a huge margin. And they don't understand all of the other costs that go into running a business. And so, yeah, there might be a great margin on the drinks. You buy a big bottle of vodka, and by the time you've mixed it in the drinks, you know, you've done 10 times on your money, right? Except, of course, you got to worry about things like people stumbling out of the bar drunk and getting hurt, or driving home from the bar and killing somebody. Most people, if you said, hey, have you ever heard of a ladies' night promotion at a bar? Have you ever heard of that? They go, of course I've heard of that. You say, okay, did you understand that in 22 states and D.C. it's probably illegal? And they go, really? Like, will you get arrested? No, you won't get arrested, but you might get sued. You might get sued. And you have to understand that a lot of these lawsuits that are like this, a lot of these laws that allow these lawsuits, say specifically that they're passed so that the state doesn't have to step in and take action. They let individuals step in and take action, and they call it like a private attorney general action. And they say that by letting, private individuals and their attorneys bring these cases, it lessens the workload of the state, and it will keep these people on their toes. But the sad part is that the people, like I said, who just think, hey, running a bar looks like it'd be fun, profitable, and next thing you know, you're on Bar Rescue and you're $1 million upside down. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. And that's the point, is that so many people get into the business without knowing that much about it. And a very, very good friend of mine's his father and his mother invested in bars and restaurants throughout southeastern Michigan. And they owned a chain of extremely well-known restaurants that were all profitable. They did fabulously. They were money makers, okay? And one of their specialties was they would find a bar that was distressed someplace. A bar that was someplace, they had a liquor license and a great location, and the owners had run it into the ground. And quite often it's because they didn't know what they're doing. And the husband and wife, my friend's parents, would buy this entity, come in, straighten it out, and a year later, business is booming, they're making money, and the old owner's watching it going, what did I do wrong? And it's not as easy as you might think it is. It's not as easy. And I'm not claiming to be an expert in the bar business, but I've known people who've owned them. I've actually represented people who own them with issues involving their bars, things of that nature. And I can just tell you that it's one of those things that at first blush, you go, oh, it'll be a great business to have because I can walk around, greet people, check out the folks, and maybe occasionally hand out a few drinks, make a great margin on that alcohol I'm selling. And next thing you know, I'm just living large and counting the money. And next thing you know, you're being sued because you didn't realize that doing a ladies' night was illegal. So it's a wild story. And I'd heard of these kinds of cases before, but not quite like this. But again, this restaurant is going out of business. And they say they were driven out of business by a lawsuit regarding a ladies' night promotion they ran a while back. So ladies' night lawsuit sent a family-owned restaurant out of business. It's more common than you think. Rameshah Maroof wrote that. James sent it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. To be or not to be? That's not really a question.